spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, September 9th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us. This next 2 hours of news, interviews, music, comedy, analysis, data, and more. And we are jam-packed with data today on today's show. But before we get to that, let's make our introduction. We got a guest in the studio. My friend Stephanie Bishop is here. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Russ. I'm so happy to be here in Portland with you. How are you?
I'm very happy you're here, too. It's always better doing the show when you got someone to talk to. And in hour two, those of you folks sticking around for Toker Talk Radio, Stephanie and I are going to go into depth about mass incarceration in this country. The political establishment is beginning to wake up to the epidemic of mass incarceration in this country. And you'll tell us a little bit about what's going on as far as some of the different angles on that.
I can't wait.
All right, we'll get to that. Also on today's show, we've got a guest joining us, Bob Blake, not Robert Blake, not the old Beretta actor. I imagine there's a lot of Robert Blakes out there. But this Bob Blake is a hemp farmer in Oregon who wants to talk to us about the medical aspects of industrial hemp, specifically the idea of growing hemp in mass quantities in order to harvest it for CBD, cannabidiol, that is so beneficial to epileptics and other people with seizure disorders. So we'll get into that, talk a little bit about CBD and the viability of industrial hemp for that use. Also on the show today and behind the headlines, we're going to take a look at a report coming out from CBS News that shows that teens are using e-cigarettes to vaporize marijuana. And in other news, teens are injecting oranges with alcohol to sneak them into class. But we'll get into that in Behind the Headlines. Also, in drug war data mining, we've got that report from Washington State. By law, under Initiative 502, every couple of years, they have to do an implementation report. So this is the latest data on their sales, how much tax they've raised, whether or not the kids are using more marijuana in Washington State. We'll get into that in drug war data mining. And then at the end of the show, we'll have even more data for you, inspired by a fellow by the name of Randy. That's right. Randy Philbrick is the new head of the brand new Project Sam chapter in Oregon. That's right. Smart Approaches to Marijuana, Kevin Sabet's anti-legalization organization, has finally opened up an office in Oregon. Check the clock here. Oh, yeah, about 2 years too late. Anyway, we'll talk about some of the things he's inspired me to look up through some of the crazy things he claimed on his Twitter feed under the Sam Oregon banner. In other words, we're going to take a look at data. We're going to take a look at facts. We're going to look at what really happened with marijuana legalization over the past couple of years. We'll be digging into the Monitoring the Future survey as well as the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. And then stay tuned for hour two in Toker Talk Radio. Like I said, Stephanie's joining us to talk about mass incarceration. At 4:20, we've got Gordon Green calling in, and he's got some K-pop for us, Korean pop music, for our daily Toker tunes, for our Irie Wednesday World Music Day, so stay tuned for that. We'll also take your calls toll-free at 84-420 radio. That's 844-207-2346. And we're going to take a break so we can pay some of the bills. When we come back, we have got the 420 radio news for you. In the headlines, we've got medical marijuana from Mexico. We've got another tribe legalizing in the Northeast. We got a tax break for marijuana buyers in Colorado, a Kansas Supreme Court case on a Wichita pot ordinance, and more information from the state of Ohio, where the Secretary of State is investigating Responsible Ohio's signature gathering. We've got the latest updates on that. Like I said, it's a jam-packed show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message from our sponsors.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
This is 420radio.org.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabis 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com. With years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
Step into the future every Tuesday night with Electric Bob's Boogaloo, our weekly electronic music jam. Electric Bob brings you the latest house, trance, dubstep, and other electronic music from the freshest DJs and producers. It's every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, with replays weekends at 11 p.m. on 420radio.org.
Hi, I'm Alex Rogers, producer of the 4th Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference, the OMMBC. There have been a lot of recent changes to Oregon cannabis laws. Recreational sales start October 1st, new licensing from the state, and changes to medical marijuana. Are you prepared? Join us at the downtown Portland Hilton September 12th and 13th with the industry's top cannabis experts, political leaders, exhibitors, and nightly networking events. For more information, join us online or give us a call. The OMMBC. Be part of history.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Replays of 420 Radio News are embeddable and shareable from our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/RadicalRuss. Now, the marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, September 9th, 2015. An 8-year-old girl who suffers 400 daily epileptic seizures will become Mexico's first consumer of medical cannabis after the health ministry granted her an exemption to its marijuana ban on Tuesday. A substance banned by Mexico's General Law of Health, cannabidiol, or CBD, is believed to alleviate epileptic fits which characterize Graciela Elizalde's severe form of epilepsy known as Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. The girl, whose parents call her Grace, wears diapers, crawls, and moves in a wheelchair. She has not spoken a word since saying mommy as an infant. Last month, Judge Martin Santos gave Grace's desperate parents permission to import the drug, called Epidiolex, from Norway or the United States. This special permit has been granted only after multiple unsuccessful treatments for Grace's condition, including brain surgery. However, while the health ministry has allowed this exception, President Enrique Pena Nieto opposes any legalization. The Passamaquoddy tribe has signed a letter of intent with a medical marijuana management and consulting company to build a cultivation facility in northeastern Maine. Denver-based Monarch America Incorporated announced last week it plans to design and manage a cutting-edge marijuana cultivation facility in an existing 35,000-square-foot building in Princeton. Chief Billy Nicholas confirmed Tuesday that the tribe signed the letter of intent. He said it wants to use the facility to make industrial hemp, not medical marijuana. Nicholas said the tribe will consider expanding operations as the laws surrounding marijuana change. He said he hopes the tribal government will reach an agreement with Monarch within the next month and that the creation of the facility could provide 15 jobs to start. A one-time tax break is coming for buyers of recreational marijuana in Colorado. Under the state's Taxpayer Bill of Rights, voters must approve new taxes, and in 2013, 25% taxes on recreational marijuana passed. But under the law, any new taxes have to be waived and refunded if the state collects more than projections that were given to voters. Last year, marijuana taxes totaled $58 million, while the projection was $70 million. But because overall tax collections exceeded projections, the state must ask voters for permission to keep the money. Also, taxes have to revert to zero on the first day of the new fiscal year, so state lawmakers passed a measure for a one-day tax waiver. That day is September 16th, when a 10% sales tax and 15% excise tax won't be collected on recreational marijuana purchases. The Kansas Supreme Court will hear Wichita's ordinance case at 9 a.m. next Thursday. In April, voters in Wichita approved a marijuana ordinance. The ordinance would ease penalties for possessing small amounts of marijuana. The ordinance does not legalize marijuana. It makes first-time possession a criminal infraction with a $50 fine. Under state law, it is a misdemeanor punishable by a fine of up to $2,500 and a year in jail. The issues to be addressed include whether the Wichita ordinance is null and void because it conflicts with state law, because it was not filed with the Wichita City Clerk as required by law, it does not contain an ordaining clause as required by law, and it is predominantly administrative, not legislative in nature, and therefore incapable of being enacted through the initiative and referendum process authorized by law. A special investigator looking into the group behind the marijuana legalization issue on the November ballot in Ohio has clarified the scope of his investigation following a lawsuit filed in federal court. Attorneys for Special Investigator David Bowers withdrew all subpoenas issued to Responsible Ohio Executive Director Ian James, his company, the Strategy Network, and his employees in a letter sent Tuesday. So the subpoenas sought all information and data related to Responsible Ohio's campaign to legalize marijuana through a proposed constitutional amendment. Ohio Secretary of State John Husted initiated the investigation after Responsible Ohio claimed to turn in about 35,000 signatures, more than his office counted, in a group's attempt to qualify for the state ballot. Last week, an unnamed Responsible Ohio supporter sued Husted, Bowers, James, Responsible Ohio, and the Strategy Network over the subpoenas in U.S. Southern District Court of Ohio. The supporter argued releasing his personal information as required by the subpoena violated his constitutional rights to free speech and freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. Responsible Ohio sided with the unnamed supporter and filed a cross-claim. New subpoenas were issued Wednesday that allow personal identifying information to be redacted. The supporter dropped his request for a hearing. This has been your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, September 9th, 2015.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Oregon has joined Washington and Colorado in legalizing marijuana. We're Portland NORML, the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws chapter in Portland, Oregon. Join us as we celebrate the launch of an exciting new era in marijuana freedom in Oregon. Our job has just begun. Powerful interests want to white out the most important portions of Oregon's legalization law. By joining Portland NORML, you add your voice to the thousands who voted for Measure 91 and want it to be implemented as written. The people have spoken. Now it is time for the legislature to obey the will of the people. Find out more about Portland NORML at portlandnormal.org. Attend our monthly membership meetings on the fourth Saturday of the month. See our website for more details. Portland NORML, ensuring responsible adult marijuana consumers are afforded the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as beer drinkers.
This is Cannabis Facts from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org, supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. In 1937, the second most prescribed medicine, marijuana, was banned. It wasn't about marijuana. The paper, oil, and chemical industries lobbied to end hemp farming. No longer labor-intensive, an acre of hemp produced more quality paper than 4 acres of trees. Plastics and fibers could be produced from a plant. Hemp can even produce 10 times the energy of today's ethanol. As marijuana prohibition ends, many states now allow farmers to again grow hemp. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to process America's hemp crop at hempinc.com.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Today in Behind the Headlines, we take a look at a story, teens using e-cigarettes to vape pot. You got to do the finger quotes for vape. Apparently they don't understand that vaping is now a verb. I think it's in the Oxford English Dictionary, as a matter of fact. But Stephanie Pappas reporting for CBS News on livescience.com as well. A study coming out of Connecticut, a survey of teens that finds nearly 1/5 of high school students who use e-cigarettes have tried putting pot into the devices. Now, they explain that e-cigarettes are vaporizers, which those of us in the marijuana community are far more familiar with than the mainstream is, even when it comes to the e-cigarettes, the vaporizing of nicotine juices and whatever. But they're incredibly popular. Last visit I took back to Idaho, counting the number of vape stores for e-cigarettes was like counting the number of dispensaries on Colfax in Denver. It was just like, look, vape store, vape store, vape store, everywhere you look. It's become very popular. It's something that public health experts are worried about, given that we've got cigarette smoking down to the lowest recorded levels in history among teenagers, but they fear some of them may be instead taking up e-cigarettes. Now, if someone is going to be smoking or using nicotine, I would argue that the e-cigarette may be the safer way for them to go than using the burning cigarette that's got all those carcinogens, but there's still not a lot of evidence and a lot of study on this yet. But what they found is that of these high school students, they surveyed them, they found that 13.4% of teens had used e-cigarettes in the month prior to being surveyed, 3 times the level from 2013. So we've tripled e-cigarette use by teens from 2013 to 2014, from 4.5% to 13.4%. And they say that in conducting the surveys, they'd heard that teens were modifying the e-cigarettes to use them to vape marijuana. And this is not to mention the vape pens that are specifically made for marijuana, the cloud pens and so forth. But these are the e-cigs that they can get in convenience stores and have easy access to, and them modifying them, tweaking them a little bit to be able to use either leaf or bud or more likely cannabis oils. So they added some questions to their survey of these Connecticut high school students. And according to the answers, 27.9% said they had tried e-cigarettes at some point. So that's, 30, getting toward 30% had tried it at some point. And separately, 29.2% had tried marijuana. Interesting that you got a higher response of young people that have tried marijuana than e-cigarettes. And 18.8% reported they'd tried both e-cigarettes and marijuana at some point. Of that group, the group that had tried both e-cigs and marijuana, they found 26.5% of them had used the e-cigarettes for marijuana. So 3 out of 4 of them that had tried marijuana did it the old-fashioned way. They smoked a joint or bong or whatever. But 1 out of 4, a little more than 1 out of 4, had tried using it in a vape pen, which means that 18% of all e-cigarette users had used the devices for marijuana, and that's where they get the 1 out of 5 number. So they worry about this, of course, because they're saying among the dual users, 29% tried dried cannabis leaves, 23% tried vaporized hash oil, and 15% had tried wax. So hashes and oils have higher THC concentrations. We all are aware of that. And the researchers said they don't know whether e-cigarettes may lure teens to try pot or whether the devices are just a new way to use marijuana for teens who would have smoked it anyway. But to me, as someone who's reported on this now for 10 years, this reminds me of the scare stories that you'll get every new school year that pops up. One year it's butt chugging, right? The kids are going to be putting beer bongs and chugging vodka in their rectums, right? And then another year it's the vodka tampon, right? The girls are going to be using these tampons soaked in alcohol to get high. And then another year back, hell, even going back to when I was in school, it was the syringe to inject an orange with vodka so that you could sneak that in, right? But these researchers point out that they don't know how frequently the teens are vaping, whether this reflects larger national trends, etc. But finally, at like the penultimate paragraph, they finally get to the point that I always make in these scenarios, and that is, the researcher said, vaping pot appeals to teens in part because it's harder to detect than smoking. Quote, when you vape cannabis, the smell is way less pungent and strong than it is when you smoke pot. Everybody kind of knows that characteristic pot odor, end quote. And yes, exactly. This is what I keep trying to point out to all these prohibitionists who are scared of the BHO, the waxes, the concentrates, and now the surreptitious nature of being able to vape these products. And that is, you brought it on yourself. You brought it on yourself. The prohibition is what motivates the smugglers and the manufacturers to create the most potent product they can because of the premium on space and sales. You want to get the most bang for your buck. And it forces the users to start adopting technologies to cover up their criminal activity. Not to say that these things never would have developed if pot was totally legal, but what made them so popular so fast, just like synthetic pot, is people trying to get away with it. Stephanie, what's wrong with you? Why won't you think of the children?
You know, I try really hard to think about the children. I get up every day and I think about the children. And I think about all the kids that are in jail right now.
Uh-huh.
And I think about all the kids coming out of college that don't have jobs right now.
Yeah. How about those kids with their parents that are locked up as well?
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to all of that. We're going to talk mass incarceration at the top of the next hour. Stay tuned. Drug war data mining is next.
Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that.
The Fingerboard Extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The Fingerboard Extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone, and Recording King banjos. The Fingerboard Extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com. You're listening to 420 Radio. Listen Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific for The Human Solution, podcasting at thsintl.org. The purpose of The Human Solution is to support each other through the trials we face as cannabis consumers and spread educational information about cannabis. Check our online listings for The Human Solution with Joe Grumbine from thsintl.org. Get.buzz. .buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining. Today in the Drug War Data Mines, we have got the biannual report, the first one issued under Washington's I-502, the initiative that legalized marijuana in the Evergreen State in 2012. By law, they're required every 2 years to come up with a report detailing how the implementation of I-502 has proceeded. That report is now available online, and there are some great data points to take out of this. The first one comes from their Exhibit 12, which is a table of non-medical cannabis retail sales by county. This is for the fiscal year 2015, so it starts July 2014 through June 2015. And that, July is when their legal sales started last year in Washington State. So it's the first full year of sales. And it breaks down the total sales, the per capita sales, the average sales among retailers, and how many retailers they have. Now, the first thing that jumps out to all of us here is the most total sales in any county in Washington State was in King County, where in the first year they sold $48 million worth of non-medical marijuana product. $48 million. By far the county with the greatest amount of sales, but we must understand it's the county with the greatest amount of population. That's Seattle. That's your major Seattle metro area, and they have 34 retailers. When you break it down per capita, they sold $24.39 per person. $24 worth of weed per person in King County, which was nowhere near the top of the per capita sales. Who was at the top of the per capita sales? Klickitat County. Now, if Klickitat County doesn't ring a bell to you, you have to take a look at your Washington County's map. You will find it is on the southern border, south central
Washington State, you could say, right across the river from the Dalles and Hood River and other Oregon communities. They have just 3 retailers there in Klickitat County, but they sold $65.80 worth of marijuana per person in Klickitat County. Although it's probably not the people in Klickitat County, it's the people coming across the river from the state of Oregon. $65 per person. And the number 2 was Clark County, $56.93 per person. Clark County is right across the river from Portland, Oregon. It's Vancouver, Washington, primarily, where they have 7 retailers total. Now, for their per capita sales of $56.93, they also turned out to be second only to King County in total sales at $24.6 million. So consider, it took 34 retailers in King County to do twice the business of 7 retailers in Clark County. Almost 5 times the number of stores to get double the sales. That's how much the Portland marijuana market is affected Clark County. Now, if we look at this for average sales among the retailers, that's where Clark County comes out absolutely on top with $3.5 million per store. Again, they got 7 stores, $3.5 million per store. King County, again, where Seattle is, only got to $1.4 million per store. They weren't even the top count, the second best county per store. Second best county per store was Benton County at $2.8 million. Benton County in Washington State. Where is Benton? Got to find Benton on my little map here. I should look that up first, shouldn't I have? It's probably sitting right in front of me and I can't see it. Benton County. Anyway, Benton County, another southern Washington border county with Oregon. So it shows you how much the cross-border traffic in legal marijuana sales has affected Washington State. Now, another set of numbers that are very telling here are the rates of use among youth in Washington State. And Exhibit 15 of their document shows that, and this is their words, cannabis use and access among students in 6th through 12th grades have changed little from 2002 through the most recent survey in 2014. In contrast, the perception of the risk of harm of regular use has generally declined since 2004. Now, let me sort that out for you in Project Sam speak. For the longest time, the anti-pot people at Project Sam and others out there have warned that one of the problems of legalization is it reduces the perception of risk. And this is how likely, when you ask a kid, do you think using marijuana is harmful? If you use marijuana on a regular basis, is it harmful? When that goes down, when fewer kids think it's harmful to use marijuana, more kids will use it. Now, of course, this invites the comparison that, are you telling us the only way you can keep kids from using marijuana is to lie about its harms? That's another subject. But in fact, in Washington State, the regular use is harmful lines have declined for every grade, 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th since 2004. And yet, the lifetime and past 30-day use has remained steady, and how hard it is for students to get their hands on cannabis has also remained rather steady. So the worst fears of legalization in Washington State have not come true. But then the worst fears never come true, do they? And that's why it's inevitable that marijuana legalization will continue on this rapid ascent in American political life. Because now it's no longer an abstract. Now the facts are out there. Now we can point to what will be 4 case studies. Maybe Ohio will be a 5. Maybe by 2016, there's 10 states that are legalized. And then there'll be plenty of data to look at to realize the sky didn't fall. The children didn't all turn into pot zombies roaming the streets in search of strains. And then we can have some sensible marijuana policy in this country. We're going to talk hemp with Bob Blake, an Oregon hemp farmer, when we return.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show. the voice of the marijuana nation. The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
There's so much I worry about as a mom. Stephen Harper thinks that organized crime should continue to profit from marijuana prohibition. Imagine regulating marijuana like alcohol and cigarettes with a strong and clear educational message, making it more difficult for my kids and your kids to access. Drug dealers don't ask for ID. Stephen Harper does not have the kind of judgment we need to protect our children, authorized by the Normal Women's Alliance of Canada.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio. The cannabis community is a diverse set of people from all walks of life, conservative and liberal, black and white, straight and gay, rich and poor, and everyone in between. Learn more about the people we are freeing from adult marijuana prohibition in our Cannabis Community Chat.
Welcome back, everybody. Joining us on the phone, we have Bob Blake, a hemp farmer here in the great state of Oregon. And Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, Russ, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And is it true that you're one of the 13 licensees in this state?
Actually not, Russ. There may be a misunderstanding. I'm very supportive of the 13 licensees. My lawyer, Michael Hughes, is one of the 13, and his business partner also is one of the 13. And I'm highly supportive of them and have been involved in trying to keep the hemp program, the industrial hemp program, open and alive and vibrant in the state.
Yeah, and that's been subject to some, some controversy here in the state of Oregon. They stopped issuing new hemp permits, and maybe you can give us some insight on what's going on with Oregon's industrial hemp.
What we met with the state. Lindsay Yang, she's the woman in charge at the ODA, the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and she felt that the statutes and the rules, they had not been given sufficient direction from the legislature, and they felt that they needed to shut down the program, and so they've stopped issuing licenses. I was hoping that they would work in the gray zone to create more of an opportunity, and I just don't think the state is willing to do that. My gut instinct says there's a lot of discussion within the government, and I don't have any proof of this, between the various entities, the Oregon, the OHA, the Oregon Health Authority, the OLCC, the Liquor Commission, which is doing the commercial or the recreational or adult use, however we want to say it, the OHA, which has the medical dispensary and cannabis program. And when a lot of the hemp farmers began to start talking about growing hemp for industrial CBD use, I think that wasn't their vision. I think they wanted it to do for maybe material to make clothing or rope or other things. But I don't think they saw the hemp designed to be done for producing CBD.
Yeah, and that's an interesting twist in this, is that, for the longest time, we've kind of existed as if there are 4 camps of marijuana. There's recreational marijuana, there's medical cannabis, there's industrial hemp, and there's spiritual ganja, like these 4, legs of a table or something, right? And science now is showing, I read a recent article that was talking about everything we know about sativa and indica is wrong. Like we really don't, genomically, we're starting to find out what these things really are. And now there's this talk about, hemp being harvested and maybe cultivated for CBD properties. There's some controversy around that as well. Can you give us your perspective?
I wish I was more of a scientist. I've been told by most that the CBD produced within hemp is virtually the same as what's produced in cannabis, if you will. I just think all of it has been has been artfully genetically combined. And I know that we have on our farm, our medical cannabis farm, we're growing a lot of quote Charlotte's Web, which is very high CBD content. And it certainly looks more like hemp than it does cannabis. But I don't know. I don't know scientifically. I'm depending on, Michael Hughes, who has one of the licenses in Oregon, to help prove all this out. And we get it scientifically tested and see what the benefits are. We have certainly a number of patients in our dispensaries. I have one dispensary in Bend, and another one hopefully opening in Hillsborough. I can't wait to see if we have the same effects with the hemp-produced CBD if we can get it into the medical dispensaries.
Yeah, the controversies about hemp-derived CBD, there's some companies that are doing it now and say it's legal in all 50 states, and there's been a lot of some negative reports on this that I've covered. And Project CBD says that cannabidiol being extracted from hemp might be problematic in that hemp is so phytoremediative. It's going to suck up all the toxins in the soil and such that maybe that's not the most cost-effective way to go about it. What have you found as far as on that angle of it?
I honestly am not a hemp professional. I was out in the state trying to help the hemp industry. Mm-hmm. And to coexist with the cannabis industry. Okay. And I really don't have the science. It's something that I'm curiously interested in. But, Russ, I don't mean to suggest that this is I wish I knew more. I just can't answer that question. What I've tried to do is promote things politically in the state to open it up, because the benefits that we've seen with our patients, with our cancer patients, using pure concentrate oils is so significant that just a quick story. We've had 6 patients who've actively followed our protocol, and we don't produce all of the oil. Some of it we get from a really good gentleman named Toby Fueling. He produces some really fine oil, both heavy in CBD, kind of the diol, as well as THC, and he goes by the name HSO, and it's Organja. He's great company. We've given that to a number of our patients, and we produce our own oil as well. And what's really, really interesting is the 6 patients we've had, they all come to us with stage 4 cancer, yet they all are in remission now, every single one of them. That's what's amazing to me. And the dozens who say, I just don't know. My doctor doesn't say what to do. And I said, no, this is our experience. The other ones, and I say this publicly to everybody, every single other person who I've talked to who do not follow the protocol, God bless them, but they have died.
Well,
that's the most amazing thing I found about this entire industry. So if we can produce hemp and CBD on a widespread basis without the contaminants that you suggested, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
But I'd like to give the Stanley brothers a run for their money and have a large Oregon-produced CBD.
I would like to see that too. And Mr. Hughes is in the chat room as well, and points out that part of this would be not getting CBD from the stalks. Like you wouldn't be harvesting male hemp to try to get it from stalks, but you'd be using female hemp, hemp flowers, non-intoxicating. Because a lot of people have this misconception that hemp is male and pot is female. No, there's male and female pot and male and female hemp. It's just in pot you want females and hemp you want males, but maybe not for this flower situation if you're trying to get CBD out of it.
Correct. I agree. I thought that they were only, In fact, I know that Mr. Hughes Michael has called all the males out of his population.
Yeah,
that I do know. So.
And that's an interesting area of focus, and I'm really interested to see how that turns out, and if we are able to get medical benefit of it. Because to me, it helps to blur the lines. To make it so that we can get access to these things. And let me bring in Stephanie, who's in our studio right at the moment. And Stephanie's been working on this a little bit as well. What can you tell us about this?
Well, I've studied both on the industrial hemp side and on the medical cannabis side. What I wanted to point out was the recent studies that have come out about all of the components of the medicinal cannabis plant, and the fact that it's not CBDs alone that are necessarily helping. And if you look at Charlotte's Web and the analytics behind it, there are several more cannabinoids in that structure right there. All of these things work together symbiotically to provide healing effects to the body. So my question would go back to industrial hemp. Whenever I'm talking to patients, we talk about agriculture dietary hemp providing all of your amino acids, all of your omega-3s and your omega-6s in the exact portion. All of these, other health benefits are in this dietary hemp. So when I talk to patients, I usually suggest that they eat the hemp for the proteins and the stuff like that, but that they stick with the medical cannabis side. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about here when he's talking about getting it out of the stalk versus the seed, because the stalk is fiber. You're really going to be able to produce a potent CBD out of the part of the plant that is for making cannabis.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Thanks, Stephanie. And anything you want to add to that, Bob?
Yeah, I would agree with Stephanie that total symbiotic or entourage effect is incredibly important. And what we've done with our oils is to try to combine it with as many plants as we can. The thing about the CBN and the CBN and the other CBGs and the other non-psychoactive cannabinoids, we just try to mix them up to get as broad a profile in our oils to give to patients. And I agree with everything Stephanie said. I just know that CBD is so hard to come by that hemp is just the potentially a huge source for it. And that's what I was really emphasizing is, gosh, can't we just get a huge source of it? Because it's a damn hard plant to grow compared to a regular cannabis plant. It's just a very finicky, very sensitive plant.
We're speaking with Bob Blake, who is a businessman and dispensary owner. You say you've got, what, 2 dispensaries now, or is it just the one?
Well, 2 licensed, but we're waiting on a result in Hillsborough. The city council's voting on our dispensary. We have a distance issue with a active use park.
Gotcha. And October 1st is coming quickly. And how is that boding for you as being able to sell to all adults?
Well, the OHA has come out with specific requirements that you need to report and file certain papers with them. But it looks like if you meet those filing requirements and you follow their rules, you will be able to sell flour, just flour, to eligible people over the age of 21.
Right on. 1/4 ounce of flour, seedlings and seeds as well. Is that something you're looking to get out to the recreational community?
We're not as, in our dispensaries, we don't do as much of that as others. I think others who have larger grow operations and whatnot than I do probably will do that more than I will. I will provide for our patients and other clients the flour for sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing and for investigating this very critical area of medical marijuana. This idea of hemp flour for CBD. I'm sure more people will be taking a look at that. Good luck, and let us know. Keep in touch. Let us know how it turns out.
And thank you for your work. What you, having just learned about you, you've done a tremendous job with everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Promoting the industry. So thank you.
Do what I can. And join me at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Actually, Saturday and Sunday at the Hilton in downtown Portland. We'll be recording the speakers and the panels, so I'll also have plenty of interviews for you when we get back. When we come back, we've got the anti-drug public service announcement of the day, followed by the debunking of Oregon's Project Sam. Sometimes it's like playing t-ball here.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio is brought to you by Sacred Serum, who is focused on creating elegant and sophisticated cannabis solutions through its line of dispensers and vaporizers that come preloaded with the world's finest cannabis concentrate. Sacred Serum's concentrate is made on pharmaceutical-grade supercritical CO2 extraction machines that use absolutely no butane or other toxic chemicals. The Vesica, the company's innovative new way to dab and frost, is now available in dispensaries across California. Sacred Serum, elegance and sophistication concentrated.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay, read the Weed Blog today.
Hi, I'm Trickster Phillips from St. Charles County, Missouri, and you're listening to 420radio.org.
Marijuana is an addictive drug, which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face-to-face with the monster of marijuana, he dropped dead from fright.
You know, it's not easy countering 7 decades of propaganda in a 2-hour show, but let's try. It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Reefer Madness Debunked.
As I mentioned earlier in the show today, there now exists here in Oregon an affiliate of Kevin Sabet's Project Sam, the ironically named Smart Approaches to Marijuana, where the smart approach is to maintain adult marijuana prohibition but soften the penalties just a little bit. It's something I like to call the kinder, gentler drug war approach. And the head of this new prohibition group in a currently legalized marijuana state is named Randy Philbrick. I found myself arguing with him on Twitter via his @PDXRandyLee and @Sam_Oregon Twitter accounts. And at one point he states that, quote, "The fact still stands that teenage use of marijuana is up in Colorado since 2012. Oh, frightening. Well, folks, this is a rhetorical ploy that prohibitionists play with stats that I like to call the island maneuver. It's a type of cherry picking where they'll find a terribly scary statistic and present it all alone with no context. And I called him on it. And that's when he responded with, quote, Yeah, I know. You're going to throw up your stat sheet showing Louisiana being the highest among prohibition states, end quote. Well, yes, I am. I looked it up. It's the full data sets from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, and there's a comparison state by state from 2011-2012 to 2012-2013. So basically, the year after marijuana became legalized in Washington and Colorado, what happened? Now, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health has this data for all 50 states, and I went and took a look at where the greatest rise in monthly marijuana use was among the kids. And sure enough, the legalized state of Colorado did have an increase. And when we say teenagers, we're talking 12 to 17, right? Age 12 to age 17. Between 2011 and 2012, 10.4% of the teens, 12.47% of teens in Colorado used marijuana monthly. So over 1 out of 10. And then the year after legalization, the monthly use among 12 to 17-year-olds went up to 11.16%, about 1 out of 9. And if you compare those two, that's a relative increase from one year to the next of 6.59%. Oh, wow. So yeah, legalized marijuana in Colorado and teen marijuana use went up 6.59%. That's scary as hell, isn't it? That's terrifying. And in Washington, according to this chart, the teen monthly marijuana use increased 3.81%. So, according to Sam Oregon, we now have the smoking guns that show that legalization of marijuana leads to greater teen use. Except for one thing. Florida had a relative monthly increase of 6.97%. Florida had a greater rise in teenage monthly marijuana use than did Colorado. Now, last I checked, marijuana is illegal in Florida. In fact, it's so illegal that the possession of 21 grams, 3/4 of an ounce, is a felony. And yet, 6.97% more teens in Florida decided to use marijuana every month. They didn't legalize there. And in Utah, it had an increase of 4.49%, which bests the Washington rise of 3.81. And last I checked, Utah is a highly religious state that seriously frowns on drug use. Also in the number of states, now there were, 12 states that had a rise in monthly marijuana use among the kids. 12. That means there was 38 of them where marijuana use went down. We'll get to that in a second. But of those 12 states where marijuana use went up among the kids, 4 of them were states that have prohibition. Florida, Utah, Tennessee, and Louisiana. 2 of them have legalization, and the other 6 are medical marijuana states. D.C. is not a state, but D.C., Rhode Island, Maine, New York, Michigan, and New Hampshire. And New Hampshire only went up barely. Very, very small increase. The United States average for teen monthly marijuana use was down 5.3%. So remember how all the prohibitionists talk about, if we legalize, we're sending the wrong message to the children. They'll get the message that marijuana use is cool and hip and not harmful, and more kids will use it. And yet, across the United States as a whole, 5% fewer kids are using it. Monthly, right? Now, the prohibitionists, when you give them these numbers, sometimes try to pivot on you. They'll say, yes, Florida and Utah went up, but Florida's monthly use rate is 7.52%, and Utah's is 5.35%. But in Colorado and Washington, it's 11.16% in Colorado and 9.81% in Washington State. So yeah, respectively, with, the relative increase was greater in Florida than Colorado and greater in Utah than in Washington. But overall, far more kids in Colorado and Washington are using marijuana. So see, legalization makes more kids use marijuana. And in fact, if you look at the top 20 states based on monthly teen marijuana use, all 20 of those states are either legalized states or medical marijuana states. See? Except for one problem. Colorado and Washington and all the medical marijuana states in the top 20 always had greater use of marijuana by teens. It's not that marijuana reform makes marijuana more popular. It's that where marijuana is more popular, marijuana reform has more support. Of course, the places with more marijuana use legalized medical marijuana first. Wouldn't it be strange if it was the opposite, right? Like if it was like Utah and Kansas were the first states to legalize medical marijuana rather than California and Oregon? Of course not. It's going to be the places where they support marijuana and they have more use of marijuana, which therefore means they have more personal experience with marijuana and know it's not the demon reefers that Project Sam says they are. But if they want to focus on the top 20 states where teen monthly marijuana use is the greatest, maybe they should try to explain why 12 of those states monthly teen marijuana use declined. And the biggest declines were California, Alaska, and Massachusetts. 3 states that are very well known for being pot friendly had some of the greatest declines in monthly marijuana use. But Project Sam, they don't have an answer for stats and data. That's not how they work. Other things that are interesting to note. As I've been debating with the Project Sam guy, the other thing that I've pointed out is that this is not just a 1 year to 1 year thing that we can look at. We've got data from Monitoring the Future. Monitoring the Future is a survey they've been doing through the University of Michigan since 1975. So we got a long set of data to take a look at there. And in that data set, in 1980, now 1980 is about when I'm starting junior high school, okay? So in 1980, among 12th graders, high school seniors, in 1980, 72% of them drank at least once a month. 72% drank at least once a month. 21% smoked cigarettes every day, and 6% smoked marijuana every day. Okay? So almost 3 out of 4 high school seniors had drank at least monthly. Over 1 out of 5 had smoked cigarettes daily, and about 1 out of 17 was smoking pot daily. That was 1980. Then we had this whole war on drugs, Nancy Reagan, Just Say No. We had millions and billions of dollars spent. We locked people up for marijuana. We changed the drinking age for alcohol. We raised it. We had a mandatory 0.08 per se DUI instituted nationwide. We had the tobacco lawsuits that required cigarettes to be kept behind locked counters and for IDs to be checked, and for the funding of truthful advertisement about the harms of cigarette smoking. And so after that, since 1980, right, 35 years worth of effort on those 3 drugs, the rates of 12th grade use now, 37% have drank monthly. We went from 72% to 37% on drinking. Smoking cigarettes daily, 7%. It's actually like 6.7, something like that, but round it up, 7%. We went from 21% of high school seniors smoking cigarettes to 7%. And in 35 years on the marijuana efforts, 6%. We're still at 6%. We were at 6% in 1980. We're at 6% now after spending millions and millions and millions of dollars and locking up arresting, let's be clear, arresting 25 million people. Didn't change marijuana smoking amongst the high school kids 1 iota. So whatever we did to get drinking down to half its levels in 35 years, whatever we did to get cigarette smoking down to 1/3 of its previous levels in 35 years, whatever those were, why don't we apply those to marijuana? Because apparently what we're doing now, locking up adults, arresting adults, ticketing adults, fining adults, forcing adults into rehab, making adults piss in a cup, hasn't changed high school senior marijuana use one bit. How about like alcohol, when we had an age at which people could be carded in licensed stores and all that? That made alcohol go down. With cigarettes, we had truthful advertising. We had identification. We had adults-only stores, locked them up. That made cigarette smoking go down. Hey, folks, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation. Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, you know, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer-mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome everybody. It's Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio on the air, live on 420radio.org exclusively. We've got Stephanie Bishop in the house. How you doing, Stephanie?
I am fantastic. It's been so informative so far.
Glad you liked it. Hey, special shout out to Left Wing Larry, who's in the chat room right now. He's Key Debt 46, by the way, in the chat room.
Nice.
Left Wing Larry, who was my roommate here in Oregon for a time, and now he's back in Colorado. And he's quite happy because Ohio State knocked Virginia Tech's quarterback out of the game. Otherwise, Larry, that game was not looking good with that other quarterback in. I'm telling you, you dodged a bullet. I'm telling you. Anyway, we won't go too far into college football because we got Stephanie here, and we're going to talk about mass incarceration. That's coming up here. Also, we've got a great story, and I tweeted about this earlier today. I'm trying to find the link, and I'll get it out to everyone else. But a great story out on here it is. Kitty Herzog is the author of this. And there's the link. Let me get this. It's off of BuzzFeed. And the article is entitled, How I Smoked My Way Sober. How I Smoked My Way Sober. And it talks about her experience being basically calling herself an alcoholic, right, who then found marijuana and realized, wait, this works for me. And how much controversy there is in the recovery community, AA and all of that, about how you need to be abstinent. Any drug is a bad drug. And so many of us are saying, well, no. Right. Now, I can personally attest to marijuana getting me off of alcohol as a teenager and getting me off of meth in my 20s. Yeah. So you've obviously heard stories like this.
Well, and I mean, the government is setting up methadone clinics. Yeah. Methadone clinics so that they can legally sell pharmaceuticals to get heroin addicts off of heroin. They're addicted to methadone. They won't let them go into a medical marijuana place and get medicine that would get them off of heroin. So
yeah, she explains her experience being, one of those, pass out at the bar kind of drunks, just being, very dysfunctional. And then and the way she describes it too was that alcohol was the lazy way to cure the worst condition I've ever suffered, which was boredom.
Right.
Like alcohol, like rather than having a hobby or going hiking or whatever, I could cure boredom just by getting drunk. And that just became a thing for her. And then she said, I wouldn't want to live my life sober. I go without pot and it's fine. Right. She says, I remember my dreams a little more. Right. But that I think this is starting to come to an end now, where this hard line in the rehab community about abstinence being the only solution is starting to fall.
Yeah, I mean, it really is about learning why you're in that phase, addiction, things like that, and understanding the nature of the addiction. It isn't necessarily just alcohol necessarily. I'm addicted to sugar, blood sugar.
Me too.
I mean, these are all conversations that you have to have. And marijuana, cannabis helps all of that. Regulates your blood sugar. It helps get you off of the hard drugs, quit smoking. Willie Nelson quit smoking. Remember, he said he just put joints everywhere.
That's right. And, I've just been recently diagnosed as pre-diabetic, but I think had I not been the pot smoker I am, it could have been far worse at this point. Now,
for sure.
Working on that. We'll get that fixed, but marijuana.
Yeah.
So we've got that to talk about. Also, there was another bit of data that came out, that Washington report. We'll dig a little deeper into that. Plus, I've got some more of the information from the National Surveys on Drug Use and Health. I just tore apart these numbers today. And sometimes I get people, they're like, oh, don't you get tired of the haters? Don't you get tired of the idiots that are getting this? Like, no, man, that's article fodder.
It's the conversation.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, at least they're having a conversation. Look how far we've come from closed doors, closet smokers.
No doubt. Smoking into a toilet paper tube filled with dryer sheets.
Or the can with the holes in it.
The can. If you've never smoked out of a can with holes in it, you ain't shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never understood that metaphor though, when they say if you don't like country music, if you ain't country, you ain't shit.
Right.
So if you are country, you are shit.
And then on the flip side, if it's not Scottish, it's crap, right?
If it's nice Scottish, it's crap. That's right.
So there you go.
Yeah. So here with Stephanie Bishop, just hanging out. And when we come back from our break, we're going to get more into detail on this mass incarceration problem in America. It's gaining mainstream understanding and bipartisan support. Republicans and Democrats now are at least making noise about it, at least, saying the things, talking about it. Whether anything happens, we have yet to see. President Obama's done a little bit, moved the ball just a bit in this regard as well. When we come back, we'll talk more about it.
Continue the conversation with Radical Russ online. Visit radicalruss.com and email radicalruss@gmail.com.
Science! We love science here, Stephanie.
It really does clear things up. Facts, science.
There we go. We'll be back with some science right after this. You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on 420radio.org. Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabis 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com. With years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com. Step into the future every Tuesday night with Electric Bob's Boogaloo, our weekly electronic music jam. Electric Bob brings you the latest house, trance, dubstep, and other electronic music from the freshest DJs and producers. It's every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, with replays weekends at 11 p.m. on 420radio.org.
I'm Alex Rogers, producer of the 4th Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference, the OMMBC. There have been a lot of recent changes to Oregon cannabis laws. Recreational sales start October 1st, new licensing from the state, and changes to medical marijuana. Are you prepared? Join us at the downtown Portland Hilton September 12th and 13th with the industry's top cannabis experts, political leaders, exhibitors, and nightly networking events. For more information, join us online or give us a call. The OMMBC. Be part of history.
Put your hands like that in the wall.
You might see me walking around with a slight limp. It's not a G thing rather than my ankling. A bit thrown like the dice in the I Ching. I'm not sleeping while my head is tangling. I need an aspirin, bruv, I need a Saturday. A cup of tea to drink, possibly a Jaffa cake. Or just an evening alone, I've had a manic day. It's been an age since I was chilled enough to master. Baby, come here, I love you.
That's music from Disraeli and the Small Gods with Nevermind. That's part of our world music library that we've got from Gordon Green and Gordon Green's Music Planet. Gordon's going to be calling in here at the 4:20 break. He's got some new K-pop for us. Do you like the K-pop?
I do. I like all music.
I like all music.
I do. I like all music.
You like all music?
You know, okay, there's some
apparently the judges say yes, you liked
there-
all music. Okay.
There's some drum and bass out there that can, but I appreciate it. Somebody appreciates it, so I'll appreciate it too.
All right, so we've got Stephanie here. She's been working for a long time on these aspects of the mass incarceration system in this country, and so there we go.
Well, yeah, let's
The
take off.
worst sound in the world, trust me.
Yeah, the lockout, it is for sure. And let's start by explaining it real quick. 'Cause
Okay.
if you know you're just coming in, okay, mass incarceration. There's a corporation called Corrections Corporations of America.
CCA.
Yeah, they are contractually bound to the United States government to do two things. One, guarantee a 90% occupancy rates in the prisons, and two, pay $36,000 a year per prisoner. Now, we have 2.3 million people in prison on a state, local, and federal level. It's all private at this point. And only one half of those, only like 1.2 of those people in jail are there for a violent offense. All the rest of them are essentially drug users in the war on drugs, not just necessarily marijuana, though there's a very large amount in there for marijuana, but also for, you know, crack cocaine, things like that. Now, this is the sick part of it is that the Corrections Corporations of America has a sister company called Unicor, and there's other companies out there that are engaged in this on state levels, and they're smaller private companies. But what they're doing is they're executing prison work contracts, and so they are sending these prisoners or keeping their prisoners. There's manufacturing, you know, facilities right there on site in the prisons, and these people are working for pennies a day to make Victoria's Secret panties, to package Starbucks coffee, to basically do any and everything in the corporate world. I just got a report today, and this sickened me, that Whole Foods
Oh my God, really?
is using prison labor instead of migrant farm labor or whatever. So they're not outsourcing anymore, they're insourcing.
And isn't there a certain psychological cruelty to having a bunch of men locked up with each other in a prison making panties for Victoria's Secret?
Yeah,
that's just mean.
And you know, I've talked to prisoners. Prisoners are like, oh, I got into a better facility because I'm a welder, or if they have some special skill,
Sure.
that's where they get assigned because they serve value there. So that pretty much sums up the system of mass incarceration. But what we wanted to do today was go a little bit deeper into it, because it is a corporation.
Yeah.
There, people are investing money, and I have this saying. I'm a true believer. Your stock portfolio is a direct reflection of your moral values.
Let me quote the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who once said, "A budget is a moral document."
It is.
That's exactly
Where you
right.
spend your money, follow the money. Politicians, they get up there, they talk, follow the money, because the money trail is always the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening here in the money trail is that we have, just recently, Columbia University divested from giving funds to invest in any private prison company at all.
That's so cool.
The students got together and forced the university to divest. Just recently, there was a story in the Huffington Post in the opinion section that stated that the New York pension funds are being used to invest in private corporations. Now, when I said my original statement online, I got a lot of flack from individuals who, are just, they're modest investors. They're IRA, they're using their retirement funds. They're not trying to screw anybody. But what they're doing is they're giving their funds to brokers. And then those people are going out and just investing their money en masse without any idea where it's going. So in that case, isn't complacency the evil?
Yeah, exactly. And for younger listeners out there, and you might be thinking, okay, so Columbia University, a college, isn't going to donate a few $1 million to a fund that funds $1 billion. What difference is that going to make?
Yeah.
Folks, look up, Google ain't gonna play Sun City. Look that up, because the first step in the 1980s that forced South Africa into abandoning its apartheid regime was colleges divesting themselves from any sort of South African business. And that was followed up by a public awareness campaign by musicians and actors and artists. And it was the ain't gonna play Sun City thing. They didn't have hashtags back in the day,
right?
But back in the day, it would have been ain't gonna play Sun City hashtag, right?
Yeah.
And that pressure is what led to the sweeping changes that occurred in South Africa. So don't think that this can't work, because it has.
No, and everybody's snowed. And I get it. There's the Black Lives. The people who are in prison, it is absolutely disproportionately racial.
Oh, sure.
But I have to point out that now we're coming to a time where classism has played a factor, where it's not just people of color, it's people who don't have money.
There we go.
It's people who get pulled over that are pot smokers, doesn't matter what color they are, and then they're initiated into the system. They don't have the money to get out of the system, and then they get caught up in the 3 strikes rule and things like that. And so what happened last year, though, in Obama administration, I do appreciate Obama administration under the former Attorney General, they did some reformation in the sentencing laws. So they loosened up the 3 strikes laws. They gave judges discretion to decide if the crime matches the time, and that if we should we be putting these people in jail for decades. On a community level, people have to understand the psychology of enslavement and other human beings, because this is something that trickles throughout history. And as we see slavery, it resonates through generation to generation
it's
to generation.
The biggest addiction this country's ever had, and has had it for over 400 years.
Absolutely. And so now
it's just modified what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
It's not plantations with chains and overt slavery.
Right.
It's institutionalized.
Now we're talking about enslaving families in the same way, because their parents are in jail for nonviolent crimes over an extended period of time. Other parents, grandparents are having to take care of those children. The psychological repercussions of first putting a human being in a box and forcing them to work for a law that never should have been a law in the first place. Where's the liability in that? How do you backtrack? You know? But then to think of all of the psychological problems that happen in a child's life, being without a parent, and then think what that kid who's coming out of college has military, prison, there are no jobs out there for them, or entrepreneur. And are they really able to be an entrepreneur when their parents we're split up, one in prison. When the criminal mentality takes over, your dad's in prison, your mom's in prison. And when are we going to be able to repair that? That's going to be generations and generations and generations because of this.
It's tough. So we got about a little less than a minute. Do you have websites, sources people can go to help and learn more?
You know, I think that everybody should read the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Search Google mass incarceration, prison work contracts, anything. I'm on Facebook.com/Stephanie Bishop 420. You can just Google my name as well and cannabis or hemp and find me.
PHIE?
PHANIE. Yeah. So yeah, get a hold of me if you have any questions. I'd love to help.
All right. So Stephanie Bishop, thank you for being here in the studio talking mass incarceration. We'll get back to the topic, but we're going to take a quick break here. We are quickly approaching that sacred time here in the Pacific time zone. And we've got Gordon Green calling in. He's got some K-pop for us. So we'll get our little Korean dance groove going. But right now, we've got to take a break. That's right, man. It's totally tubular. I have to explain to people, Radical Russ isn't a 60s thing. It's an 80s thing.
Yeah.
It's radical like tubular and gnarly. Not radical like Jerry Rubin. Right. But hey, it's 420 here in Portland, Oregon, so we've got a safety meeting we got to get to. When we come back, Gordon Green will be on the line with some K-pop for you. Stay tuned.
This is Rick Cusick, and you're listening to 420 Radio.
Oregon has joined Washington and Colorado in legalizing marijuana. We're Portland NORML, the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws chapter in Portland, Oregon. Join us as we celebrate the launch of an exciting new era in marijuana freedom in Oregon. Our job has just begun. Powerful interests want to white out the most important portions of Oregon's legalization law. By joining Portland NORML, you add your voice to the thousands who voted for Measure 91 and want it to be implemented as written. The people have spoken. Now it is time for the legislature to obey the will of the people. Find out more about Portland NORML at portlandnormal.org. Attend our monthly membership meetings on the fourth Saturday of the month. See our website for more details. Portland NORML, ensuring responsible adult marijuana consumers are afforded the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as beer drinkers. The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details. The Fingerboard extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The Fingerboard extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone, and Recording King banjos. The Fingerboard extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the Fingerboard extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, 420 in the middle of the week, and that means it's time to speak with Gordon Green from Gordon Green's Music Planet. How you doing, Gordon?
Doing great, Russ. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. We got Stephanie in the studio today.
Hi, Gordon.
Hello, Stephanie.
So Gordon produces Gordon Green's Music Planet. It's part of our music show lineup that you can hear every weeknight at 8 p.m. Pacific time. There's always a music show on. And you can catch them replayed as a 6-hour music block on the weekends starting at 8 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays. And Gordon's show, Gordon Green's Music Planet, is music from all around the world. And I understand today we go to South Korea.
We're going to South Korea for Daily Toker Tune.
There we go. Exactly. So we'll talk about that, but let's talk about tonight's Gordon Green Music Planet show, because I know you've always got a really interesting look at music from around the world. What's tonight's show about?
Tonight's show is a very unique show, Russ. It took me a long time to find the music for this. It's pre-revolutionary Persian pop music.
Wow.
Okay, so which revolution are we talking? What year would that be?
We're talking about the 1979 Islamic Revolution that overthrew the Shah.
Right. Okay.
Nice.
So 70s era Persian pop?
60s and 70s Persian pop. Some of it sounds kind of like traditional Middle Eastern music, but there's a lot of funky, hippie, really groovy sounding things that really interesting, and I'd love putting the show together.
All right. I'm looking forward to that. So check that out tonight at 8 p.m. and you can catch the replays on Saturdays and Sundays at midnight as part of the 6-hour music block. These times all Pacific time. And of course, you can find the time in your time zone just by going to 420radio.org/schedule. Let's talk about the song for our 420 break here, because you've brought us some, a while back, some Japanese metal. Now we get some Korean pop. Tell us about the tune.
Yep, it's K-pop, Russ. One of the biggest music genres in the world, has fans all over the world. And this is two of the biggest stars who released this single a year or so ago. I'm talking about G-Dragon and Taeyang, and their song called Good Boy.
All right. And looking at the YouTube page for this, 70 million views. And I understand that's, pretty average for these types of artists, right?
It's incredible, man. And these guys have a huge fan base, and even in the USA, a K-pop band called Epic High just toured the US and sold out shows at $150 a pop all over the country. And these guys, G-Dragon and Taeyang, they play in China, they play all over Asia, and extremely popular.
All right, well, let's give it a listen. It's G-Dragon and Taeyang with Good Boy.
Good Boy.
All right, let's check it out.
Peace out, Russ.
Peace.
Put your hands in the air. How you feeling out there? We gon' party over here, 모두 같이 say it. Let me hear you say la 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 la. I am a good boy. 여자들은 날 보면 눈에 불이 켜 낮은 only hamster 밤에 사랑을 나누던 gangster 다정다감한 눈빛 자연스러운 스킨십 넌 훔칫 할까 네가 뭘 원하는지 말 안 해도 돼 굳이 눈치 다 알아 보기와는 다르게 I don't play 널 갖고 장난 안 해 사람들은 말해 나 같은 남자를 조심하라고 너무 믿지 말라고 말할 뻔하다고 What you know about me 네가 날 아냐고 I am a good boy 나 don't need that 난 너만 있으면 돼 내게 기대 이게 게임이라면 yes I'm a player and you could be my coach love affair 보기와는 다르게 I don't play 널 갖고 장난 안 해 사람들은 말해 나 같은 남자를 조심하라고 너무 믿지 말라고 난 말할 뻔하다고 What you know about me 네가 날 아냐고 I am a good boy Feeling out there, we gon' party over here. You got to see it, let me say la 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 la. Say la 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 la. Say la 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 la. I am a good boy.
You're listening to 420radio.org. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome. You're listening to 420 Radio. Listen Saturdays at 1 p.m. Pacific for Weed Nerd, podcasting at YouTube. One of the internet's most popular grow shows is on 420 Radio. Pick up grow tips from the master behind multiple award-winning strains from Team Green Avenger. Check our online listings for Weed Nerd with Subcool from YouTube. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. That's music from Cass Haley. The song's called Survive. Love Cass Haley stuff. We're here with Stephanie Bishop hanging out. Well-known activist. Where are you? Bay Area? Where are you at?
Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene.
I'm just right down the...
See, every time I see you, it's at some event that's out of state. So I lose track of the fact that we're in the same state.
Yeah, we travel a lot.
No doubt.
I got called out. You know, actually, one of the funniest, I think, moments was coming back from the Richmond show, and we were on the same train.
Yes.
And we didn't know, but you and I did the exact same thing because, when you're an activist and you're doing these shows, it really is easy to just pop on the train and go. And you don't have to be x-rayed, and you don't have to take your luggage through security. And so the train is an activist. That's what we do.
Works well.
So we both snuck down into the extra baggage car department to actually curl up in the corner and fall asleep. And you were in that room, and I fell asleep in that room. And we got up in the morning, we realized that we had been crashed next to each other.
It was a trip.
All night. So there you go.
Richmond, California. Made the trip down there for Cannabis Cup. And I wish there was more train travel. I wish I could travel east on the train.
No, you really can't. It really works because when you're going from Oregon to Seattle to Northern California, the train ride is just a sort of overnight thing. You get on in the evening, you sleep on the train, and you're home in the morning. And you just can't do that going to the East Coast. It's days.
Yeah. It's not worth it. And you have to end up getting into a plane, and it sucks.
Yeah,
it's worse. Yeah. Some other things that we were just checking out the chat room, and a good point made is how in legalization, all the states that pass legalization, and medical too, they do this, but they pass it and they say, all right, well, if you want to get a grower's license, you can be a grower unless you've been convicted of growing.
Correct. And the other one too is if you've been convicted, and this is actually in the Bill of Rights, that there's a non-slavery. You have the right to not be enslaved unless you commit a federal crime, and then you lose your right to vote as a citizen. Yeah. So these are just strategies that they use to keep this business from actually being a legitimate business.
Right. The 14th Amendment, no slavery nor involuntary servitude shall be allowed except for punishment of crime.
Right.
And so they punish you for the crime of, having weed or driving while black or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And in 48 states, you lose your right to vote once you go to jail. Right. Vermont and Maine, you never lose your right to vote. You can vote from death row.
That's awesome, actually, because you're still a citizen just because this law was made by people. It's really hard. It's really hard. First of all, we've lost 70 years of medical research. Look where the Israelis are. I mean, there's that travesty.
Sure.
And then on top of that, we're going back to archaic times. Why are we putting people into jail? The Catholic Church incarcerated Galileo because he said the earth was round, and
the earth went around the sun.
They believe that he was trying to be smarter than they were, get power, whatever. They threw him in prison. Nelson Mandela, they threw him in prison. So prison is actually traditionally been used as a form of quelching political dissent.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely the case now, but our system is so different because it's like you're making an army. You're breeding people who have no chance of ever fulfilling their potential or living up to their potential ever because they've been so screwed up by the system up to this point. We're robbing them of their individual right to grow, and there's no life pursuit of happiness in that that's what's being taken away from them. But let's go back to that. Why are we putting them in prison? In order for the prisons or the United States government to guarantee a 90% occupancy rate in the prison system, let's go back to that point, is to declare a war on drugs.
Yeah.
Make it illegal for the personal use of any and all drugs. They put it that the drug diversion program happened. They put on a list of them, which is bad, which is not. Then they start moving these drugs around on the list to benefit themselves because they want to still use the opiates for pharmaceuticals and so forth.
Sure.
Now we're in a system where if you are a personal drug user, like in Florida, if you have a very small amount of it, you're being put into the system. You didn't commit a crime. You don't own a gun. You didn't beat somebody up. You didn't steal from them. I understand there are a lot of addicts out there who do steal, but I gotta go with, as long as they didn't like armed robbery, home invasion with a gun, keep a hold of your stuff. They're addicts, they steal. Do I, as a taxpayer, want to pay $36,000 a year for that guy to sit in a box so some other guy can make money?
And I also think expanding on that idea of needing a generational and docile workforce in the prison system, that can't be accomplished without marijuana being illegal.
No.
The people addicted to cocaine, heroin, meth, alcohol aren't as good of workers.
No.
And the people using marijuana tend to be healthier and smarter.
Now, the methamphetamine addicts, they do think that they're good at work.
Yes.
But they're not.
Oh,
They're not good at work.
No, I can testify to a 6-hour binge of changing the color schemes on Windows 98.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 95, I guess it would have been back then.
Or getting up in the middle of the night to paint the entire
I need
house
to take
purple.
apart this toaster right now.
Yes, exactly. They think they're being useful.
Right. And you don't want a bunch of those guys making the panties for Victoria's Secret.
No, and there's military, the whole program started as the idea that if you're in prison, you need to give them something to do.
Sure.
Understandable. That is fine. I'm not arguing with that at all. But if we look back, that program started in the military. So those people were making military, whatever, equipment,
parachutes, uniforms,
stuff,
boots,
whatever. That's how it started. It wasn't until the mid-90s that an act, I think it was in 1994, and I don't want to spit it out because I can't recall it right now, being after 420 and all. But there was a change in the act in the mid-90s that allowed private corporations the ability to execute work contracts with the prison system, and that's really when it happened. And if you want to look up stuff, Unicor, UNICOR website, you can just Google that, and you'll see that there is an entire website out there which is a list of products and services that you can get from the prison industrial complex. Here's another one. Let's go back to stocks. This one will blow you away too. Corrections Corporations of America is traded on NASDAQ.
Right.
We can go out, if we were evil, cold-hearted, butt-headed people, we could go out and buy stock in Corrections Corporations of America. Unicor, it's a corporation, but nobody can buy stocks.
It's privately held?
Only 4 people own stock in Unicor. Dun, 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 dun. I know, it's sinister and wrong on all levels.
Oh, wow. We're speaking with Stephanie Bishop, who's been researching this tragedy of the prison industrial complex. And, I got to thinking when you were saying about how prison laborers used to do military work.
Right.
From the evil genius point of view, what a brilliant move. Because if the prisoners are building the army stuff, nobody's getting rich. But if the prisoners build corporation stuff, the corporation stuff gets rich off of cheap labor.
Right.
And the army then has to contract with who? Corporations that then have to have government contracts to supply their boots and their,
Absolutely. And here's the thing. You remember when they made movies about outsourcing jobs, customer service jobs to this, and manufacturing jobs, and wherever all the factories gone?
Yeah.
You don't hear that term anymore. Why? Because they're insourcing. They're totally insourcing.
It's like, why would we have Mohinder in India answering the phone calls at whatever, 3 a.m. his time, and getting half of a xenophobic American population all pissed off because, oh my God, he's got an accent. And instead, hey, we got Bob, the pot smoker, sitting in a prison in Indiana.
Right.
He can answer the phone
for
17 cents an hour.
Yes.
And we don't even have the long distance of getting to India.
Yeah. Oh no, and it's like, as a prisoner, I have heard the most crazy stuff, the craziest stuff. And as a human being, I understand if I really go out and commit a crime and kill somebody, that okay, fine. But the fact of the matter is that most of these people that are in prison, in state prison, in federal prison, pay per day to be there.
Yeah.
So they're paying their costs, but they're paying their costs. The cost of incarceration is being paid by the taxpayer. The cost of doing business for these two corporations is completely taxpayer fed.
Right.
Completely.
There's no risk.
They're not like a small business owner who the cost of doing business, that term means they're going to go out and buy the coffee and do the build out and buy the machines, hire the people. They have to do all this stuff before they can turn a profit.
Sure.
The cost of doing business for Unicor, Corrections Corporation of America, and every other private prison company out of there is paid by the taxpayer dollars, because we are paying to put them in jail, to put them through the legal system.
Mm-hmm.
We are paying the probation officer.
Yeah.
We are paying that, all of that.
And that comes back, earlier we were talking about voting rights and how prisoners in Vermont and Maine are the only ones who, while they're in prison, they can vote. There's a number of other states where once you get out of prison, you're on parole or probation, you can vote. Right. There's somewhere, okay, once you've finished probation, you can vote, but not parole. And then there's some that after you've finished all three of them, you can apply to get your voting right back. Or after you've finished all three, you get your voting right back. Then there's another level where even if you've done all three, you don't get your voting right back until you apply. And then there's a few where nothing you can do gets your voting right back. Florida is one of those. Now in Florida, you lose your right to vote for a felony. You get a felony for marijuana for possession of 21 grams. And that has resulted in a situation where 1 out of 5 voting eligible black people in Florida cannot vote. Right. So it's a tool of political control as well. We're going to take a break and talk more about this in our last segment with Stephanie Bishop, the horror of mass incarceration here in the United States of America, the land of the free.
Five of the last 9 major party candidates to run for president, 3 of the last 9 vice presidential candidates, and the last 3 two-term presidents have all smoked pot. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House. This is the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned in to 420radio.org. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Despite strong public support for medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization in Georgia, the state spends $121 million every year to arrest, prosecute, and imprison Georgians for simple possession. Each year, the state of Georgia spends less on driver services, agriculture, and forestry combined. What else can $121 million a year do in Georgia? With that much money, the state could hire and keep 3,000 more teachers, improve roads and bridges, provide tax relief for small businesses, repair aging sewage systems, or lower taxes. But right now, that's millions of dollars of your tax money wasted on failed enforcement. Tell your representative you're tired of wasteful spending and ask them to end cannabis prohibition. Join the conversation at www.peachtreenormal.org. Peachtree Normal is a proud affiliate of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter.
The 6th annual Portland Hempstock is proud to present the Human Revolution featuring Jeff Peevosh on your left.
This one's for Jack, y'all. can make your mind swirl. It's a funky plant with a fiber that is resistant to rain and mold. It's the strongest plant fiber known to man, the best rope you'll ever hold. Well, the pioneers covered up the wagon trains with the canvas made of hemp. In Washington and Jefferson, they grew it on their farms and said to make the most of it. The first stars and stripes were shown on him, the first Constitution too. This is around the world for food, fiber, oil, medicine, and fuel. And if we press it seeds, we won't have no need for any of the oil. We can make things and mix, run our cars, go it back next season. It'll fix the soil, the most nutritious seed we can put in our mouth with omega-6 and 3. We can feed the world with the tree of life and live sustainably. But if we cut down all the trees, we won't have nowhere to breathe.
That's Human and the Human Revolution with Tree of Life, performed live at Portland Hempstock 2010. And of course, Portland Hempstock has survived once again its third gauntlet. It will be held at Waterfront Park October, I think it's 17th, 18th. Let me verify for sure, but I think I got that right. Yeah, 17th and 18th of October. Now, I will be in Richmond, Virginia at the Virginia Normal Conference at that time.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be doing the Virginia Normal Conference, but Herb Thrasher will be there. He'll be emceeing the metal stage, so it's going to be another great show there at the Portland Waterfront. Glad to see that's happening. We're here with Stephanie Bishop, and we've been talking about mass incarceration, and Stephanie pulled up the unicore.gov. It's .gov, right?
Yeah.
Unicore.gov website, and man, you can get pretty much everything but hookers and blow on this site.
Oh, I think there's probably a secret website somewhere.
Secret one for the hookers and blow?
Password where you get that. But I'll go over it because, you know, a lot of, we were talking right before, you know, you don't hear the buzzword outsourcing anymore because they're insourcing.
Sure.
So, you know, they've made a movie about an American going over to India to try and get his customer service job back. So maybe there's a customer service representative who wants to show up on Unicore's doorstep and try and get their customer service job back. But here, apparel and accessories, distribution and warehousing logistics, facilities and warehouse storage solutions, office furniture, seating and accessories, vehicle upfit, remanufacturing and fleet services, awards and plaques, electronics and recycling, food service items, prescription and safety eyewear, contact center and help desk services. You could be the computer tech on the phone.
So could Walmart's cheap eyeglasses be coming out of Unicore?
Absolutely. Electronics and components, interior and exterior signage. Those are the yield signs and printing and bindery services, data services. I love this one. This one, the irony is going to drip from my tongue as I read this. Energy efficient and green products. You are using American human slave labor to make green products and putting it on your website like that's a part of your valiant mission statement.
Yeah.
Insane. That is insane to me.
Save the planet, imprison some black folks.
Yeah. Mattresses, linens, and draperies, or range solutions. And there you go, folks.
Well, this, you know, and we mentioned it before, but this goes back, you know, this is a fundamental, you know, aspect of American economy that must be addressed. And I'm hopeful. I've been reading articles lately, like I read an article today about was it a Portland bar? No, a Portland bar has done it, but it's this other guy. He's a restaurateur who has eliminated tipping at his restaurant. And the way he did it is by paying servers as if they're professionals.
Right.
Paid them $15 to $25 an hour. They got 401ks. They got health plan. And he says, yeah, I had to raise my prices. A beer went from $4 to $4.50.
Ooh.
But think about when you got your $4 beer before, you were tipping $1, weren't you?
Right.
If you weren't a asshole, right? You're tipping $1. So your beer really cost you $5. Now it's down to $4.50. And so I'm getting this feeling that some people are starting to wake up to this idea of, hey, if we want to have a vibrant middle-class economy, we have to pay people.
Right.
You know?
We have to, apparently we have to create that for ourselves because that has been robbed.
Mm-hmm.
That has been robbed for us. If you look out there, we do not have jobs out there other than, well, we're going to the business conference, the marijuana industry,
that's
creating
right,
jobs like crazy, but they don't have jobs. So as a kid coming out, a young adult, their choices really are military, prison, or
green entrepreneur.
They could be an entrepreneur, right? But again, we're going back to.
But not everybody can.
You have to be trained from childhood to think that way.
Yeah.
And if you've come from this broken home and society has treated you by extension as a criminal, are you really going to achieve entrepreneur?
Or what?
I hope you do.
How about the irony, though, of a lot of the young people that do have that entrepreneurial bent put it toward the only entrepreneurial avenue they've got, dealing drugs.
Right.
Then they get caught and busted. Now they got a record that prevents them from getting involved in applying their entrepreneurship in a legal way that benefits society. That's just the complete opposite of what we ought to be doing. We ought to give preference to people who've been busted for weed in getting these licenses and these jobs. Let's take the people who were the best at it, because just because they got caught doesn't mean that they were worse or better than another grower, but it may mean they were more prolific.
Yeah.
You have more opportunities to get caught in that circumstance. So, yeah, I just don't understand why we do that. No. This is such an amazing subject, and now senators like Kirsten Gillibrand and Rand Paul, Cory Booker, other people are starting to raise the call about mass incarceration. Yeah. We're going to take more of a look at this in future shows. In particular, we want to take a look at these presidential candidates, and my God, how many are there now? 22?
I haven't even been able to get through the Republicans. When you're talking mass incarceration, none of the Republicans they're so archaic in their thinking. They really are like, oh, you did the crime, you did the time. They're not even willing to have the conversation about why you put people in prison. And that's really how, when you're having such a deep conversation about what do, you have to bring it back to that. What do we as a society want to, do we want to use our jail system as our public health system, as our mental health system? Do we want to just keep putting people in the prison and using them for slave labor? What's happening though is, these people can talk all they want, but it's always the money. And right now we have decreased funding for education, and we have put those funds into perpetuating the system of mass incarceration.
I think I saw a stat, and I may not be accurate on this, but the way my brain works, I probably am, that California has built 19 prisons in the time it's built one university.
Yes.
Something like that?
Exactly.
It's crazy. And this is something, like I said, we're going to be covering this more in depth, the mass incarceration in the United States of America. And it comes down to, like Stephanie was saying, deciding as a society what kind of society we want to be. Yeah. Sometimes people that want to obstruct change play it as if there are natural laws of economics at work here that make this happen. No, just the other day on Bill Maher's show, I saw Rick Santorum, presidential candidate, who they got in this brief little back and forth where Bill said, yeah, as rich guys shipped off all our jobs overseas, and Rick can't come back saying they had to because they couldn't. Because the overburdensome regulations in the United States.
Oh no!
No, it's because they. In the United States, if they had to follow regulations and pay workers, they'd make some profit. And if they go overseas where they don't, they make more profit.
And if they insource in the prison system, they make a whole lot more profit.
But it's not as if we make these changes and suddenly capitalism grinds to a halt and nobody makes profit.
No.
But people at the top probably make less profit, and that's what they don't like.
Yeah.
And you got to ask, as a society, how greedy a bastard are we going to let people be?
Right.
Right? I'm all for profit motive and
who's investing money in the campaigns right now? So that's another thing. Instead of looking at these people who are going to be campaigning as president, I want to look at who's dumping money into their presidential campaigns. Is it Corrections Corporations of America? Is it all of these prison companies out there? If they're dumping money into these campaign funds, then that's not the guy or the woman I'm going to vote for.
Yeah.
Because they're in their pocket.
I'm with you. We're going to take a look at that as the election season heats up. We'll find more information about the prison corporation ties of the candidates running for office. We'll do more election-related coverage as the year goes on. It's going to get pretty exciting with marijuana legalization on the ballot in Ohio in 2015 and possibly 5 or more states in 2016. They won't be able to avoid the topic in these debates. Can't wait to see it happen. Well, folks, time flies when you legalize. That's all the time we got in our 2-hour block. Stephanie, thanks for being here. What a great show.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be in your presence, Russ.
Oh,
so fun.
We'll have a good time here at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference. We're going to do a preview of that on tomorrow's show. Also on tomorrow's show, we've got Cops Say Legalize Drugs, another great speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And I'll be back from my dentist appointment. I have a 7:10 a.m. dentist appointment tomorrow. We'll see how well that goes.
Talking funny tomorrow.
Welcome, tokers and tokettes. Hey, that's all the time we got. I'm Radical Russ for Stephanie Bishop. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.